Okay, so welcome back here. Hello, how are you? That's good? Everything is good? So we have only 3 chapters left, so please cheer up for the end of semester. So last week there was a very strong wind in Kansas, so I think it's a moment that give us an idea of why the Wizard of Oz happened in Kansas. Okay, so when the strong wind came last week, I thought I was going to high five with Jesus Christ. So always take care of your health wherever you are. Okay, so last class we have studied about the wages. We have a look at what are the factors that affect the wage changes, and then what are the factors that cause wage inequality. Okay, so next we will learn how to measure inequality. Okay, inequality here is talking about wage inequality. Okay, so what is wage? I just say income, okay, which is the wage. The income is the money you receive in exchange for your labor, right? For your labor or investment. Okay. In a period of time. Okay. Right? So income is very important factors of living standard, because without incomes, without wages, we cannot eat food, we cannot purchase some stuff what we need, right? So this is why income is very important. You are providing your labor force to the companies, you will get the these incomes as a compensations, right? So here's as times goes by, what is measured in time interval is called the flow. Okay, so income is flow. Okay, it's in over time, right? So so this is called the flow. For example, wage data is measured and accumulated once a year. Okay, so this is the flow. On the other hand, the measurement at a specific time is called a stock. Okay, for example, the number of people, right? Populations, right? So in the United States, the census bureau measures the populations every 5 years, right? So the population is the what? Stock. Okay. So as we know that wages are flow data. Okay. So you can distinct between flow and stock. Okay. So what is flow? Measured over over an interval of the time. And units of time. Okay, so they measured for a year. On the other hand, okay, there is a stock. Okay, so stock is measured at one specific time, right? For example, the Census Bureau usually measure the population, the number of populations every 5 years, right? So for example, population. Okay, so that is the distinct point where the between flow and the stock. Okay, Okay, so what does wage inequality in here? What does means? It means that wages are unevenly distributed in society, right? Do you agree? So when we measure the wage inequality, we can divide into 5 equal groups. So this is called quantiles. For examples, you can divide it into the 0% and 25%, 50% and 75% and 100%. You can divide it by 5. Okay, so the lowest wage quantile and highest wage quantiles you have are distinguished in this sense, right? So you can measure inequality by using these kinds of difference between what lowest wage inequality and highest wage inequality, right? So that is the wage inequality, right? So as the difference between these two sections widen, okay, so the society inequality problems will grow, will increase and increase. Okay, so as time goes by, the rich peoples becomes more richer, and the degree. So and then what happens? The degree of inequality in our society is increasing, right? So income equality right means that distributed unequally, right? For examples, to have income equality, we can use 5 equalized groups. Okay, what was that? It is quantile. Okay, so for example, so 0%, or 25%, 50%, 75%, 100%, right? So we can have the lowest income quantile and the highest income quantile, right? So if this gap increase, the amount of inequality will increase, right? So in society, here the rich are getting richer. Do you agree? Right? So next we will look at the alternative measures of inequality. The first thing is wealth. Okay? So alternative measures of inequality. First one is wealth. Okay, so what is wealth? The wealth means that every asset you have, right? So for examples, include your savings, cars, your homes, right? So all of these are what? The groups of the asset, right? So that which is the wealth. Okay, so these assets are amount of wealth that you have at particular time now. So therefore, it can be better indicator of the wealth inequality. Okay, it's more specific and it's more broad, right? So the wealth inequality is greater than what? Wage inequality, right? Because wealth inequality, wealth is include all of the things you have now, right? So wealth is all the assets, okay, including what is that? Savings, cars, or home, okay, and so on, right? So it can represent amount of asset you have at the times or at one specific time. Okay, so it represents amount of assets you have, right, at the time or at one specific time. Okay, so usually where's inequality is rather than incomes inequality. Okay, do you agree? Right? So next, what is that? Next is permanent wages. Okay, so permanent wages means that it is the average wage that you can earn throughout your life. Okay, so your entire life, right? So you can better measure your standard of living using these kinds of permanent wages. For example, young people are paid less than older people, right? The older people have a lot of work experience with high wages, okay, compared to the young people, right? So these kinds of permanent wages can be good measurement and forecast for consumptions in society, right? So if you use the annual wages, okay, as a measurement, you cannot use them as an accurate indicator because you have annual savings or borrowings, right? So this is why we used permanent wages as an alternative measure of inequality. Okay, so second one is permanent income. Okay, so it is average lifetime income. Okay, so as we know that it is better measure of living standards. Okay, so for examples, there are two groups. One is young people, another one is older people, right? Right? So young people is paid less income. Okay, older people is more, paid more, right? Income with what? Job experience. Okay, so these kinds of permanent incomes could be good indicator. Predictor of consumption. Okay, so but if you use the annual income, okay, you could not it is not good indicators of consumptions because what? You will borrow and save the monies. Okay, right? So this is why we use permanent income, right? So there's some another alternative approaches. Okay, so another alternative approaches is to look at the inequality in living standards. Okay, another alternative approach is you can see you can measure inequality in living standards. Okay, right? So So just like wealth inequality, right? So it is more focused than the money you are making out of the money you are spending, right? So it means that you focus on what you spend compared to what you earned. Right? So you will focus on the what you spent. Okay, that is the measures using inequality and living standards. Okay, so next one is here's how to measure the inequality of opportunity you have. Right? So it is looking at the intergenerational mobility between parents and you. Okay, in order to look at the state of economy, you first have to look at whether your income is independent of your parents' income, right? So we can use this to measure the inequality of opportunity you have. Okay, so for examples, your father earns more than 80% of average father, right? The children like you earned more than 40% of the average child. Okay, so if the finance disadvantages are passed on from the parents to children, there will be the opposite result. Okay, so that is the intergeneration mobility. Okay, so intergeneration mobility. Okay, so it is terms of economic status, which is the independent between children and parents, right? It means that independent. Okay, so you will see in the mathematics course, and you can measure some opportunity you have. Okay, so because it is to measure inequality of opportunity. Quality of opportunity. Okay, so that is intergeneration mobility. Okay, so next we will learn about poverty. Okay, so what are the criteria for poverty? Okay, so it is the poverty line. Okay, I will just write down. Number 2, it is in terms of poverty. So we will see the poverty line. Okay, so poverty line is to determine the poverty. Okay, so since the 1963, the poverty line has been updating the monthly using a food purchase data in census category. Okay, so if you have your wages below the poverty line, you are in poverty. Okay, that is a criteria to the makes you the poverty or not. Okay, so the 2021 poverty line is $70,000 for 2 family members. Okay, so you can use these kinds of data in order to get the poverty rate. Okay, so poverty line is dollars amount used to determine poverty okay, that is a poverty line. Okay, so it is from Census Bureau. Okay, and they update annually. For inflation. Okay, so it is since 1967. Okay, at the time they used data on food purchases. Okay, using data on food purchase. Okay, so we will think about what is a poverty rate. Okay, poverty rate. So poverty rate kinds of rate of peoples whose family income falls below poverty line, right? So poverty rate is share of people whose family income falls below poverty line. Okay, so poverty line is what? Dollars amount used to determine poverty state. Okay, so that is kinds of indicators, right? So in terms of the poverty rate, for example, in 2022, the poverty rate was 12.8%. That means that it is the 1 over the 8. Okay, so it means that 1 in the 8 is in poverty. Okay, so for examples, poverty rate in 2022 was 12.8%. It is about 1.8, so in a percent. So it means that 1 in the 8 is or in poverty. Okay, that all the meaning. Good. So there are two ways to measure the poverty. So one is absolute poverty, another one is relative poverty. Okay, absolute poverty determines the adequacy of resources associated with absolute living standards. So absolute means that what is that? It is not changing. So this is same with the poverty line in other countries, or same with the poverty line in prehistorical time. Okay, so absolute. Another one is the measuring poverty. Okay, so one is absolute poverty. So it is two judges adequacy of resources relative to an absolute standard of living. Okay, absolute means it is not changing, right? Standards living, right? So what this means? So it is same poverty line in other countries. If we use the absolute poverty as an indicator, or it's the same poverty line in the prehistoric time. Okay, that is absolute poverty. Okay, so what is the relative poverty? Relative poverty. So relative poverty is measures of the standard of living in your current society. Okay, so it depends on the standard of living you have that everyone has, right? So it is kinds of relative poverty. So Americans, so poverty line, use the both absolute poverty and relative poverty. Okay, so relative poverty is material living standards of your contemporary society okay, so it depends on what everyone has. Okay, so it could be changed, right? Because it depends on what every people has, right? But in terms of US poverty line, they use both of them, which are absolute poverty and relative poverty. Okay, that is measuring poverty. Okay, so any questions about this? So there are three major factors of poverty. We want to see what is three factors of poverty. Right? So I don't know if you agree with these three kinds of factors. So let's talk about it one by one. Okay, first one is most poor people live in the poverty for a long time. Okay, which is called long-term poverty. First one is most people are in poverty will spend much of lives in poverty. Lives in poverty, which is called long-term poverty. Okay, do you agree? So once poor people are unable to get out of poverty easily, okay, so that is what means, right? So second one is children and single mothers live in poverty. Okay, children and single moms. Okay, do you agree? Since the wages they can earn are very small, and children and single mom are easily in poverty. Okay. Another one is final one is people of color live in the poverty. People of color. Okay. For examples, Hispanic or black people. Right? So there's a Hispanic and the black workers in United States, for examples. They usually live in the poverty. Okay, unfortunately. Okay, so in order to solve this problem, right? So government should make some policy in order to help these kinds of the people of color workers, right? So do you agree? So that is kinds of three factors of poverty. Okay, so when will the poverty occur? The poverty usually occurs when you lose your jobs, right? So jobs is related to your wages, right? So if you have a job, you can earn your wages, right? So this is what we call unemployment, right? When you lose your job. So the reason is that there is not enough opportunity to get a full-time job. Okay, so this is why some people are in the unemployment status, Okay, so the reasons for the poverty vary depending on the ages, race, and family structure. Okay? So when does poverty strike? Okay. First one is losing a job. Okay. Which called is unemployment. Okay, because of lack of full-time jobs. Okay. Another one is it varies according to age, race, family structure. Okay, do you agree? Okay, so next, let's take a look at the social security policies, insurance, and taxes that the state provides. Okay. 3. Social insurance, social safety net, and redistributed taxes. Distributed taxes, right? So, what was the taxes? Here, taxes, as we know, are the transfer of what? Money and services and goods to other peoples, okay, by the government, right? So, taxes can transfer cash, services, goods, right? So government provide people into accounts. So it is one of the way to be less inequality and poverty. Okay, there's another law of the tax, right? So by providing people with these kinds of benefits, you can reduce inequality and poverty. Okay, so the next one is, what is a social security net? Social safety net. Okay, so what is a social safety net? It includes a cash assistance, or tax breaks, and in-kind transfer. Okay, social safety net is cash assistance, tax breaks, and in-kind transfer. Okay. So is there anyone who knows what is the in-kind transfer? In-kind transfer is, for example, of food stamp. Okay. So food stamps provide vouchers to poor people so that they can buy a food in the market. So, however, the purpose of these kinds of food stamp is to improve the health of the poor people, because they cannot buy the cigarette or alcohol and gambling using the food stamps. Okay, so that is kinds of voucher. So that is one of the example of in-kind transfer. Okay, so in-kind transfer is kinds of food stamps, so which is kinds of voucher, okay, in order to provide food. Okay, right? So okay, let's go back to the social safety net, right? So for examples, there's a government programs, there's a social insurance. Social insurance acts as a protection against the financial crisis with the bad outcomes that you might face, and unemployment, on illness and disability, and outliving your savings. Okay, so at this point, the government increased the money for social safety nets using a taxes, through the taxes, right? So social safety net examples is government programs. Okay, so it is kinds of social insurance. So social insurance insure you against bad outcomes. Okay, it's kinds of financial risk. And unemployment. Okay, when you lose your job, and when you seek illness and disability, or outliving your savings. Right, so social insurance can insure you against all kinds of bad outcomes, right? That is the government programs, right? So, what was that? At this point, what? Government will increase the money for social safety net using a taxes. Okay, so to do this, government will increase the money for social safety net through the tax. Okay, so because the government budget set will increase by collecting the taxes, okay, from consumer and sellers, right, as we know. Okay, so one of the things we have to know is the progressive tax. Okay, there is a progressive tax in related to the tax. Okay, what is that? Progressive tax. Okay, what is progressive tax? It is a progressive tax that makes people with higher wages pay more taxes. So if you earned lower wages, you will pay less tax, right? So for examples, a low wages persons pay only 10%. A middle wage persons will pay 15%, and high wage persons will pay 30%. Okay, that is kinds of progressive tax. Okay, so it makes the people with higher wages pay more taxes. It makes the people with the low wages pay less taxes, right? That is kinds of progressive tax, right? So more income, more tax. Okay, for examples, low income taxpayer should pay 10% of income, and for middle income taxpayer should pay 50% out of their incomes, and high income taxpayers should pay more, which is 30%. Okay, that's kinds of example of progressive tax. Okay, Okay, do you agree in kinds of progressive tax? Do you think that if there's some anyone who can earn the money more, do you think that they should pay more? It depends on your thought, right? So there's no answers, right? So anyway, there's kinds of progressive tax, right? So next one is social safety net again. Social safety net makes the decisions based on your wages level and wealth. Okay, so based on the average wage level is called mean tested. Okay. Okay, very important concept here. So which means that eligibility is based on your income or wealth, but to be specific, in terms of the wealth, it is offset tested. Okay, so determining the based on the wealth is called asset tested, right? And based on your average wage level is called mean tested, right? So using these kinds of mean tested, it provides a minimal support to move up the poverty line, right? So it makes the people to escape from the poverty line, right? So it is a kind of social safety net, social safety net that gives you the least help you get out of the poverty. Okay, got it? So it can provide minimal support above poverty line, right? So for examples, there's food stamp. Okay. So what was the food stamp? So earlier, there was a food stamp on the in-kind transfer, right? So this is called the SNP. Sorry, SNAP, SNAP, which is the supplementary nutrition assistance program. Right? So that is the SNAP. So this allows people to buy only food and not anything harmful to the body, such as gambling, alcohol, or cigarettes. So it is a kind of programs that prevent bad choices. Okay, for people's the value of food. So it is about giving food of profit so that these programs in order to help them get out of the poverty. Okay, so it can prevent bad choices. The poor because the poor value food, right? Do you agree? So that is kinds of food stamp, right? So it is the based on your wages, right? It means that it is they use the mean tested. Okay, so next one is let's take a look at the social insurance programs. Social insurance programs, right? So social insurance programs provide coverage for everyone regardless of being tested. Okay, there's a distinct point between social safety net and social insurance program. Okay, so it protects everyone from danger by providing insurance regardless of whether they are poor or rich. Okay, so and it is a social insurance program that covers the hard part of private insurance companies to provide. So for examples, there's a health insurance. So you've heard of the Medicare, right? Which is kinds of health insurance. So Medicare covers the cost of Medicare for the populations aged 65 and older. Okay, so this is based on your previous wages, not on the mean tested. So if you've made a lot of money before, you can get more benefits after retirement, right? So uh, social insurance program is difficult for private insurance companies to provide profitably. Okay, so there's some examples. It is health insurance. Okay, so in automobile history insurance, there is Medicare. Medicare is for ages 65 and older. Okay, so it can cover the cost of medical care. Okay, so and it is based on your past earnings and so it means that if you earned more in the past, you are eligible to receive more benefits. Right? So that is the social insurance programs. Okay, any questions about this? Right? So finally, let's talk about wage list distributions. Number 4, debate about income redistribution. Okay, so you need to know about utility here. Okay, what is utility? Utility is kinds of degree of well-being you have. Utility also means a sense of satisfaction with additional money, right? So that is level of well-being. Okay, from extra dollars. Okay, so there's a marginal utility. Okay, so marginal utility is how well-being changes as extra dollars increases. Okay, so let's think about poor people and rich people, right? So for poor people, the poor people have a high marginal utility, right? Because they feel more satisfactions compared to rich people. But on the other hand, rich people have low marginal utility, right? For example, if I provide $1 to the Michael Jordans, the Michael Jordans will not satisfy, right? So as the additional dollars increases, right? So the amount of well-being becomes smaller over time after initially increasing by the diminishing marginal utility, right? Do you agree? So let's write down marginal utility in terms of marginal utility for poor people is larger, marginal utility is larger. On the other hand, the rich, it is smaller, right? So marginal utility means that if the extra dollars increase, you have, right? But your well-beings could decrease because of diminishing marginal utility. Okay. Do you remember that in terms of what diminishing marginal benefits, or right? So if you to put more money, okay, so your satisfactions will decrease and decrease. So the graphs could be like this here, right? What this means? At first, your satisfactions will increase as the extra dollars increases, but as time goes by, the slope is decrease and decrease, right? So it means that we have diminishing marginal utility, right? So from this, the marginal utility, okay, we can have a graph. So the graph will look like this, right? So we can get a well-being curve from these kinds of graph, okay? So gains from, let's take a look at the gains from Lee distribution. Okay, so we have well-being curve. Okay, so we can draw the graph and like this. Okay, here is the well-being curve. Let's assume that y-axis is satisfactions you have from 0 to 10. And here x-axis is your annual income. Okay, so it means that this kinds of graph is your extra dollars you have, right? Which means that marginal utility, right? So for rich people, at first they have a lot of income, right? So let's say the 7.45, okay, is from rich people. How about poor people? It's less compared to rich people. So let's say that it is the 5.7. Okay, so this is from the poor people, right? So if the government imposing the money, imposing the support to the two of them, right? For rich people, their satisfactions will decrease, right? Because they get a small amount. On the other hand, the poor people's satisfaction will increase a lot, right? Because what? If they have extra dollars, their satisfaction will increase by a lot, right? So it means that if they provide support from government for poor people, they have increased the satisfactions. On the other hand, for rich people, they have decreased satisfaction, right? So let's compare the total well-being Okay. Sorry, total well-being. At first, how much total? At first, total well-being. Rich people's well-being plus poor people. Okay. So it means that 7.45 plus 7.7 is could be 13.50. 15. But after changing the support from government, poor people get a 6.5, rich people get a 7.40. So what is a total well-being? 7.5 plus 7.40. What was that? 13.9. Okay, which means that it is increased by 75. Okay, so in conclusions, overall well-being has increased by 0.75. Okay, so increasing utility is a socially important issue. This is why we have these issues as very important political issue. Okay, so a person who values utility is called utilitarianism. Okay. Realism. Okay. So the government strives to maximize the overall utility in society. Okay, as we look at the well-being curve, right? So maximum efficient can redistribute resources, creating a high level of social well-being. Okay. The people who value utility insist that government should try to max utility, okay, because it can lead to a society with high level of well-being. Another word, they have high level of utility. Okay? By redistributing resources from rich to poor. Okay, there's a thinking of utilitarianism. Okay, so we can think about the cost for doing this. So the cost of transferring money in the process of allocating the resources in society is called leaky basket. So moving money, they should pay the cost. Okay, you can call it as leaky basket. Right? So leaky basket is some of the money gets lost along the way. Okay. Money gets lost along the way, right? So we can think about why does the resources redistribution process cost money. The first thing is administrative cost. Okay, why? Redistribution is costly. First one is administrative cost, right? So most administrative work is done by government workers. Do you agree? So there's an administrative cost to implement these kinds of policies, but most of these costs are very small. Okay, so done by government workers. But it's fairly small. But anyway, it's kinds of cost, right? So, second one is income tax. Okay, so income tax means the tax collected from all wages. So, higher income taxes will reduce the effort to work. Do you agree? So you made a lot of money by working hard, but if the government tax it with a high taxes rate, it will naturally reduce the willingness to work, right? So income tax is kinds of tax collected on all income. So if the government increase your income tax, it reduced work effort. That makes sense, right? So the final one is what? Wasteful tax avoidance and illegal tax evasions. Wasteful tax avoidance and illegal tax evasions, right? So taxes are kinds of expense you have to pay. Okay, so no one wants to pay. So using a lot of illegal method, people would want to avoid these kinds of tax. The United States reports to the IRS, which is the Internal Revenue Services, in a report to prevent this tax avoidance. Because many companies would like to avoid the taxes, because they usually finding the method how to avoid this amount of tax. So this could also be a social cost, right? Honestly report income to IRS. Okay, so there are three reasons, okay, why we pay the cost in processing of redistributing the resources in society. Okay, so okay, there's some things we have to think. There are many benefits to safety net, right? But the problem is that it can reduce to your incentive to work, right? Because the government pays a profit to the people based on the mean tested profit. Okay, so this means that as they pay taxes on all the extra dollars, they lose their profits. Okay, the sum of the higher wages and the lower benefits for each dollars earned, we can call it the effective marginal tax rate. Okay, so the safety net. Sorry. It can turn down work and you can reduce incentive to work or incentive to seek higher paying work. Why? Because government will support to you. Okay, so it is from mean tested benefits. Okay, so some of higher tax and reduced benefits. Okay, it is effective marginal tax rate. Okay, so their standard of living does not improve at all, even though you have earned more through the work. Okay, whether redistribution is valuable depends on how little basket becomes leak. Okay, so this one is the amount of each extra dollar you earn that you lose to high taxes and lower government benefits. Okay, so in this case, what? Even though you are earning more through the work, okay, your living standards hardly improve at all, right? Okay, so the whether redistribution is valuable, right, depends on how little basket becomes leak. How leak the basket is. Right? Okay, so finally, as you know, there's efficiency and equality. Okay? Versus equality. Okay, they have trade-off relationship, as you know, right? So do you remember the size of pie and distributed pie, right? So efficiency was related to the wage distributions without safety net. Okay, that is efficiency. Okay, they want to increase the pie, right? So they want to increase the pie by lowering the taxes and increase the incentive to work, right? On the other hand, equality is what? Fairness, right? So the equality, which is the fairness, is to divide equally into the small pie sizes. Okay, they don't want to increase the pie, right? So let's think about what's more in line with your thought, right? So there's no clear answer. So efficiency is no income distribution with no safety net. Right? So government usually decrease tax rate in order to increase incentive to work. Okay, so they can increase size of pie. On the other hand, in terms of fairness, okay, they want to have equal size of a small pie. Okay, so that is the equality. Okay, I'm sorry about my ugly writing. Okay, so that's all the chapter 13. Okay, so next time we will study 14. Okay, good, thank you.